Hey, how goes it, everyone? Hope you're all doing well. Told you I wasn't gonna drop off the planet. Yeah, so Black Adam vs. Apocalypse sure is out, huh? This sure is the 165th episode of the show. That is indeed an objective fact. And boy, let me tell you, I was honestly pretty excited going into this one. Not for the matchup alone, though I don't dislike it or anything, but rather because the community response to it was just really infectious and I was hoping it would pay off. What would normally just be the 26th Marvel vs. DC fight they've done has basically turned into the match of the millennium, and while I just do not get the joke, and I will fully admit I was underdressed for the occasion, as long as everyone else is happy, I'm happy. It's the least I could ask for. I just hope the folks who memed it the most got their money's worth, you know? But with that said, what did I get out of this episode, personally? Did it end up rocking my world? Listen, I had to fulfill the obligatory Dwayne Johnson reference quota somehow. Let's just start the review. The rundowns this go around were pretty solid overall. I was interested to learn more about the Shazam mythos, as well as both characters' origin stories, and there's this sense of tragedy that's mirrored between the two of them, and I appreciate that that kind of thing is what makes up the core of this matchup, rather than it just being another, oh, they have the same powers kind of matchup, as I've noticed most comic matchups are kinda prone to falling into. Apocalypse's whole deal was especially interesting to me, since he's the one that I'm much less familiar with, and honestly, I almost feel bad for the guy with how it might as well have been fated that no one around him wanted him alive. But it can't all just be tragedy. What about the comedy? Well, it was pretty good for the most part. I liked the Bible fake out, and while I understand why they didn't make the cut, I kinda wish that the jokes from the previews made it into the final episode. Others, like the Shazoo bit, did end up growing on me, and the Beak joke, it didn't overstay its welcome, I'll give it that at least. Also, learning about everything Apocalypse has at his disposal and everything he's done with it was fucking insane. Like, oh, what kinds of powers does he have? The answer, yes. Probably my favorite bit, though, was learning about how Adam's care for Kahndaq tied into the reason why the gods he draws power from are different from those of other Shazams like Billy, in that they come from those worshipped by the people he loved who wanted him back more than anything after his death. That's just really neat, and I like it. Oh, also there's a clip from Christmas Vacation, 10 out of 10 episode by default. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Now, as for the fight, I honestly could have seen the setup coming from a mile away, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad. Apocalypse is invading Kahndaq, simple and sweet, what more do you need? The way it leads into that setup, though, is really unique, being presented as a comic page. It's just a nice little touch and helps it stand out from other episodes of its kind. And let me just say, the background is a sight to behold. I adore the detail they put into constructing Kahndaq, and them having this sprawling cityscape really helps convey the scale of Apocalypse's invasion. Really good stuff. Oh, also, this half of the season is already 2 for 2 with these story-driven fights. Adam defending his homeland was obvious, but I like that it doesn't just jump straight into him and Apocalypse throwing hands. He's cleaning up shop and taking care of the mooks, leading Nur to reveal himself in response to Adam trying to find the one behind all this. And I love the shot he comes in on, with him being silhouetted against the sun. Plus, I just enjoy the flow of their first dialogue exchange. Speaking of the dialogue, Wolf Williams and Kamran Nakad both do a good job as Apocalypse and Adam respectively. You can really feel the threats they pose and the convictions they're driven by. Apparently some people had a hard time understanding Apocalypse, but I didn't have that issue, so yeah, I don't know what to tell you. And on the topic of the audio, Fallen Gods is kind of a vibe, not gonna lie. I'm pretty sure rap doesn't really fit either character, but it doesn't make this track any less of an earworm, and honestly I lost track of how many times I listened to it before the episode dropped. Though that's partly because it got leaked before John Bond came out, whoops. Also, the lyrics are so funny, like, goddamn, just can't take I'm powerful, I punch the best, or shapeshift my arm to a big drill, I'm harmonious, seriously in any capacity, and I love it. Anywho, after the opening blows are out of the way, we get this brief shot of the two clashing on the street, and I really like the camera work here, and in the fight as a whole. It's so fluid and it helps the whole thing feel all the more dynamic. Plus, the fighting itself is super snappy while still having the impact it deserves, so it doesn't feel like there's any wasted air. A good example of that impact is when Adam just turns around and punches straight through Apocalypse, only for Nur to pull Adam's arm out of him and say that his council can get fucked. That's raw as hell, and believe me, it's not the last moment like that. Far from it. Adam retaliates by blasting Nur, only for the attacks to get absorbed and the robot minions to dogpile him. Nur's speech is decently intimidating, especially with this shot of him in front of the moon, as he basically says that even a god's power is beneath him. Take notes, Doom. But then Adam busts out the lantern ring, and the sequence that follows sure is a flying brick moment. I like the conveyance of speed, and the residual shockwaves of their fight blasting a hole in the moon is a cool shot in my opinion. The shot right after of the tiger running, though, is a little silly looking, but not in a bad way or anything. Then Apocalypse becomes a beak boy, and Adam tells him to get the hell out of his country, which, given the track record so far, is not a good omen, just a hunch. The shot of Apocalypse's silhouette towering over Kahndaq in front of the moon is really nice, as is the hand-drawn bit of him winding up his punch. Admittedly, there is that notable shift when they go back to the MVC sprites, but I don't mind it with the way that they're used, with Adam spiraling up the one arm only to get sent back down to Earth with the other. Oh, and the distant screams after the punch hits the ground. That's fucking haunting! Even more so than if they had shown the citizens suffering. The way it's presented here leaves their state to the imagination, and no matter how you slice it, it's not pleasant. Seriously, I got chills the second I first heard it. And in one last act of desperation to defend what remains of his home, Adam calls on the living lightning to annihilate Apocalypse. Also, we get that good Shazam shout I was hoping for. Hell yeah! But then we get to that ending. Holy shit. Apocalypse regenerates, now having the living lightning at his beck and call, and stomps a now defenseless Adam's face in, cackling all the while. Not only do we get this gnarly shot of the aftermath, but he also ends up breaking the camera, which actually carries over into the rest of the runtime, which I thought was kinda neat. But that itself isn't the kill. Oh no. Nur allows Adam to cling to life just long enough to let the fall of his beloved country be the last thing he sees before getting absolutely fried by his own weapon. Couple the result with the detail of the battle transitioning from sundown to night, meaning that this fight was the sun setting on Kahndaq. That, my friends, is what we call the good shit. I will say that the "oh shit" line from Adam is just a smidge out of place, but even with that, this is my new favorite ending of the season, bar none. Jesus tap dancing Christ. Oh right, there's also a conclusion. I liked it. It really felt like they covered all their bases here with how debatable the matchup is, and while Adam had his own advantages, Nurs were just better suited, such as his energy absorption and Adam not being immune to mental attacks, though I do hear that it could have gone either way. I already mentioned in the last video that I prefer when matchups aren't just X hits Y harder, and I like that this is another example of that, just on a much grander scale. Fuck, dude, this episode is just... wow. I already expected it to be good at the bare minimum, given the season it's a part of, but they really went above and beyond in a way I, or probably anyone else, couldn't have seen coming, let alone for this of all episodes. Hell, I'd even go so far as to say this is the Goku Black vs. Reverse Flash of the season, an episode where you can tell that everyone involved put their all into it in a way that time and budget restraints could only dream of holding them back. Except that here, the only low point is a couple of jokes I could have liked more instead of Goku Black's analysis. Oh, and how could I possibly forget? Major props to DJ Tiki. This is only the man's second writing credit for this show, and both times have been actual fucking masterpieces. Look, DJ, I don't know if you're watching this, but if you are, whatever sorcery you've been up to in that writer's room, keep it up. But yeah, I'm just over the moon at how unreasonably great this episode was, and I will be genuinely astonished if anything in the rest of the season can so much as touch it. As for the next time, at least they're finally ripping the bandage off of this one. Okay, maybe that's a bit mean. I don't dislike the matchup, but I can't say I care much for it. And hey, at least it's not Trunks versus Lucina. Thank the fucking stars. Plus, they're actively prioritizing Dragon Ball Heroes and the Archie comics in terms of what they're going to be pulling from most, which I didn't expect going in. Sure, it means that we're probably never going to be seeing their regular versions on the show, but from what I've heard, this should make the debate more interesting. On top of them getting a chance to talk about a continuity of Dragon Ball that they haven't on the show before. And we even get to avoid having to hear the exact same feats that we've had to sit through from the last few Dragon Ball episodes, so that's just the cherry on top. I'm definitely looking forward to the music potential of this episode, if anything, because, for Christ's sake, it's Dragon Ball and Sonic. Of course it's gonna be good on that front. More than that, though, I just really hope this doesn't turn into the shit on Silver show, given Ben's historic dislike for the guy. Like, we don't need another Mewtwo versus Shadow on our hands. Honestly, I just don't feel strongly enough about this matchup to want for much else out of it, but hey, I said the same thing about this episode, and look where that got us. So if we get another supreme banger in a row out of this, I'll definitely be a happy camper. And with that, there's another review down. If you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. It honestly does mean a lot to me. Feel free to do all of the YouTube things with the liking and the subscribing, and definitely share this around with someone you think would like it too. Feel free to also assume I mean this in all of my future videos too, cause I'm not telling you twice. In any case, I'll see you again soon. Stay safe out there, and have a good one.